I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thanks for joining once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode, we go back to our artificial intelligence playlist, and we're doing part 2 of our investigation into BERT. Now, BERT is a very powerful model for natural language processing, and we're going to be training that model in this series. And in order to train a model, of course, we need data, and that's what we're doing in this episode. Is we're going to go and we're going to get data of movie reviews. We're going to download a big data set of positive and negative movie reviews, and we're going to prepare those for training in our natural language processing model. Let's get to it. Interested in additional resources for your project? Make sure to check out the additional links in the description. Okay guys, we are continuing our investigation into BERT. Make sure to check out the intro, which is in the card above if you have not watched the intro yet. Here is our directory that we've created for our BERT instance, and you will need to create a directory, as I mentioned in my last video there, somewhere that's nice and comfortable for you to work from. And we're going to start a new file in Notepad++ here, and we're going to make that into a Python file and save it. So I've saved that into our directory in the TinyBERT folder there, and it's called movie reviews. So that's what it looks like if you wanted to look at the folder. So very, very basic. We're not using any kind of additional layers or helper programs or anything like that. We're just writing Python, and here we go. So we are going to import our OS, and we're going to import the shell utility, and that's going to help us work with files, because we are going to be working with a whole bunch of little tiny files in a couple of directories. We're going to import TensorFlow as TF. Now we are using the Google TensorFlow in this series, but we will also be using PyTorch in other episodes for other machine learning tasks. And moving on, we'll import our TensorFlow Hub as Hub. Now TensorFlow Hub is provided. It's really nice. It allows you to download pre-trained models and use them, with the least amount of code that you would write, and so it makes it nice and easy to work with. And so we're going to use TensorFlow Text as well, and then I'm going to actually be using an optimizer from Keras Optimizers called Atom, and so we'll be using that in this project. And we'll also be using matplotlib, so we're going to import pyplot so that we can plot our results at the end of our run, so we can kind of get an idea of how successful we are and how our training's going and things like that. Now note, most of these imports are for our big script that we're going to be doing. Today we'll probably get as far as the shell utility there, since we'll be downloading some data from Stanford University, and many thanks to them for putting together a data set that has 25,000 positive and 25,000 negative reviews, and every review is kind of like a paragraph sized review of a movie, so there's lots of data in each review for the most part. It's a really great little training data set that's been made available, and we can use BERT to use it for classification to see if we can train BERT to use these reviews to train itself so that it can classify new reviews if we just type some in ourselves. And that's really the point of doing some AI work, is that you want to operationalize it somehow to be useful. And so here we go. There is our URL for ai.stanford.education there, and it is a compressed file that has a ton of text files in it in different folders, and those folders will be created in our BERT directory that we created at the beginning of this series here. And so we're going to make our data set. We're going to use the utilities there from Keras. We're going to get file, and we're going to get the file from the URL, and then we're going to decompress it and take a look at the data ourselves at the end of this video, so that we can sort of get a sense get a feel for what the data looks like. And we also don't want to download it every time, so we can set the cache directory so that Keras will know that it's cached and it won't try to download it every time. If you do need to download it every time, you can use the force_download flag on there, but it's nice to be able to just download it once and at the very beginning of your script, and every time you run your script after that, it won't re-download it. It will check, oh, this data is already here. We don't need to download anything, and so that will make your script go a lot faster, and that's what we want to see there. So we're going to get that ACL IMDb. It's IMDb movie reviews V1 from Stanford there, and that is going to help us to do our training. And then we can set our dataset directory equal to our os.path.join, and then we'll use our directory name from the OS path there and our dataset, and that's going to get us going so that we actually have some data that we can work with in our training. And of course, within our dataset directory, we are going to set our training directory, and that's also going to have a path in there, and we're going to use the dataset directory for that, and it's going to be called train. And so we'll have a training directory there for us to look at. Okay, let's do a little bit of cleanup here. We'll print that so that we can see what's going on, a little bit of feedback in the console, and then once we're good to go here, we can go ahead and we can remove some of the files that we don't need anymore after we've downloaded things here. So we'll create a remove directory, and that's just going to clean things up a little bit for us. And once again, we can use our shell utility there, and we'll remove the tree, all of those files that are there, so that we don't take up extra space if we don't need those. And so that's really all we need to do for that for today. That's going to help us get our data ready. It's going to pull our data down. It's going to unpack it and clean up some files so that we are ready to start our training on the data. I'm going to take an extra step here. I'm creating a new file, you can see there, and I'm creating a command file. You can also do this as a PowerShell or a BAT file or whatever you want. But I'm just going to be running, because I'm running specifically Python 3.10, I'm actually going to call Python directly, specifically this 3.10 here, and then I'm going to run the movie reviews using 3.10, and that's because I have some cool stuff installed with 3.10. And another way that you can manage those things is to use virtual directories, which are really awesome. But we're just going to run this with our Python 3.10 here in my app data folder. Let's go take a look at what that looks like. Okay, here's our directory. We've got our movie reviews Python file and our run movie reviews command file. And now we can set our working directory here in our command line. We can set that to our C, dev BERT tiny, so that we are working in the directory that we want to work in, and we can just call the command file or PowerShell or BAT file or whatever you want to use. And this makes it nice and easy because you can just type in the name and hit go in order to run it. And there we go. We started our script, and it might sit there for a minute as it loads up some libraries. But eventually it will sort of start, and you can see there we go. We've got our download coming from ai.stanford.edu, and we're getting that tar.gz file there, and it doesn't take too long to download that file, but we definitely don't want to download it every time we run this because we're probably going to run it a million times, and that's why we have the cached option for that when we are running our script here. And there we go, we've completed our file download, and of course now it's just unpacking everything and putting everything into directories and using that shell utility to do those tasks. And we can actually check and see how things are going there. The CPU is working pretty well. The GPU is actually working because I'm recording. So that's not anything there, but the CPU is working away, trying to unpack those files, and then once it's done, it's done. Your first run of our script will take the longest, but after that it is cached, as I mentioned before. And you can see there we go, our cleanup statement, our print statement executed, and so we can see that our script finished, and here's our directory. Look at these directories that were unpacked here. We've got positive and negative reviews in our training directory, and there is a file. I double clicked that, it opens off of my my recording window, but there you go, there's one, and here's another one. So there's another one. So we do have some good files in here. That's what the files look like, and we can zip out and go into the negative reviews here. We can also look at those, and that's what we want to see there. And this sets us up perfectly for the rest of our script to do some natural language processing. Interested in more cool topics like these? Make sure to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description.